This message comes from ADP. Whether it's a last-minute policy change or adding a new company holiday, anything can change the world of work. From HR to payroll, ADP helps businesses take on the next anything. ADP, always designing for people.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. So, y'all probably already know this, but here are two of my favorite things in the whole world. One, I love to go to the movies. And two, I love to talk about movies. So, wow, lucky me, NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour not only asked me to come on their show and talk about SZA and Keke Palmer's new movie, One of Them Days, they even got me tickets to go see it in theaters. I love you guys. Pop Culture Happy Hour, Stephen Thompson and Aisha Harris team up with me and my producer, Corey Antonio Rose, for an IBAM and Pop Culture Happy Hour collab to tell you why this new movie that gets into gentrification, young Black womanhood, and the legacy of Black comedy is an 85% success. And just so we're all on the same playing field, Stephen is going to give us all a synopsis of this film.
So, One of Them Days stars Keke Palmer as a highly driven waitress named Drew. She's getting ready to interview for a promotion that would let her manage her own diner franchise. But it's the first of the month and the rent is due, and it wasn't the wisest decision to delegate the rent drop-off to Drew's roommate and best friend Alyssa. She's a free-spirited visual artist played by SZA. Alyssa has made the even less wise decision to delegate the rent drop-off to her no-good boyfriend, and you start to see where this is going. The rent money's gone, eviction is looming, and matters only spiral from there. Soon enough, they're dealing with shady payday lenders, a neighborhood bully, and a visit to the blood bank where the first sign of trouble is the presence of Abbott Elementary's wonderful Janelle James. One of Them Days is in theaters now. Brittany, what did you think of One of Them Days?
I had fun. I feel like the film advertised itself as like a fun, silly movie, and it was a fun, silly movie. I was charmed by SZA. She had a very warm on-screen presence that I was really pleasantly surprised by. I had never really known her to act, so I didn't know what to expect.
This is her first film role.
Yes.
She did pretty good. And of course, Keke Palmer, you said that she's one of Hollywood's most charismatic leads, and that is just nothing but true. I thought that she was better than the film, but she's also very frequently better than the film. So I don't know if that's really saying a lot.
Very true.
And that's not necessarily an insult to the films that she's in. That's just Keke being Keke. I will say it had been, I think the first time I had seen her like in an adult role in a straight up comedy like this. And I was like, I wanted more.
Yes.
I left the film feeling like, okay, I could watch Keke do this like 6 times a year. But yeah, I thought that it was a little slapsticky at times. That's not really my jam 100%. But I still felt like it was a lot of fun. They had good chemistry between SZA and Keke Palmer, and also a lot of really great, very solid comedic little roles that were filled by really, really, really great, really funny actors. Like I would see someone like Cat Williams pop up, or
Lil Rel Howery.
Oh my gosh, Lil Rel pop up. Now, I will say sometimes I felt like the movie was getting a little it was spinning out a little too much. I felt like at a certain point that Alyssa and Drew should not have been friends anymore.
We're going to get to that because I have some questions about that.
That was one where I was like, I think y'all should have ended this movie separated. But this was a lot of fun.
All right, how about you, Corey Antonio?
Oh my gosh, I really enjoyed the film. I did not know if I would like it. It's been a minute since a comedy has made me laugh in the theaters.
There aren't that many comedies in theaters.
Right.
Yeah, this is true.
I mean, it has all the parts of a good night out at the theater. Oh, look, we're going to get into Mr. Patrick Cage.
He was so handsome.
It's been a minute since I've had a leading man really enthrall me like that on screen. The chemistry between SZA and Keke was tangible, believable, which was a refreshing surprise to me. I didn't know if SZA was going to make me lose her, SZA the personality, SZA the musician in her performance. And yeah, it was a really refreshing take, and I loved that it was tackling something that felt real, or that is like, people are still struggling to pay rent. It was a story that was giving us that at an age that felt accurate to what's really going on, as opposed to this idea that you just leave the house at 21 and everything's great.
Very millennial movie, it felt like.
All right, what did you think, Aisha?
I echo a lot of what both Brittany and Corey have said. The thing I came away with from this movie is that making intentional comedy is really, really hard.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes involves a moment where these two characters, they try to go to like this payday loan type of place. And this is like a very astute observation about the way these places are predatory and really, really try to just entrap people. And there's a great back and forth between, the two leads, and then a comedic actress who I think you've seen pop up in a lot of your favorite shows. She's in Curb Your Enthusiasm. She's also in Abbott Elementary a little bit.
She was on an episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR.
Yes.
We're talking about Kayla Monteroso Mejia.
Yes. She plays Kathy. So she's an agent at this payday loan center, and she has no sympathy for their plight.
Are you having a heart attack?
I've never seen a credit score this low.
You got problems.
You guys are old. Way too old not to understand how credit works.
Yes. You're denied. You're void.
I wish there were more moments like this, because there's so many great character actors who pop up in this movie that I feel like the bits were not quite hanging together in the way I like it to. It just felt as though there were moments where the banter could have been faster. Like, it felt shaggy in places.
Shaggy was exactly the word I was going to use.
And that can be endearing, right? Like, this is clearly trying to evoke an older kind of Black comedy. I'm thinking of Friday. I'm thinking of Three Strikes. If you all remember that movie.
Oh, whoa, throwback.
Yes. Directed by DJ Pooh, was always on BET and from 2000 to 2010. It has that shaggy, very kind of low budget, but also very crude at times humor that, your mileage may vary. But overall, I did enjoy it. And I agree that they, SZA and Keke, they could put them in more movies. I love it. But it didn't quite have the same energy and pacing and tightness of something like Girls Trip, which is I'm sorry, I'm just always going to keep coming back to that movie as one of the standard bearers of what a R-rated comedy starring Black people can look like. That to me is one of the pinnacles. And it didn't quite have that energy in the way that I wanted it to. But yeah, I'm curious, Stephen, about your thoughts about this movie.
My thoughts are very, very similar to yours.
Yeah.
I really kind of loved marinating in the charisma of these leads. I do think SZA is perfectly on the nose casting as a flighty artist who you wouldn't necessarily entrust.
Who chooses the wrong men.
Who chooses the wrong men and who I wouldn't necessarily entrust with a logistical task, but somebody who is lovable nonetheless. There are some pretty serious script issues. I didn't necessarily think, to kind of get to what Aisha was saying, I think there's a shagginess going on here where I felt like the script just kind of needed another pass. Some of the way that kind of conflict between the two leads, which is, inevitable in the plot of this film, they have to kind of be together and then be pulled apart and then be brought back together. But the way that they're pulled apart, there are all these scenes where they're in conflict and we're supposed to think they're equally at fault.
Oh my God, yes.
And yet SZA is so much more at fault.
Yes, that is true.
I literally wrote in my notes, Drew needs to dump Alyssa. Why are you friends with her? In all caps. That's what I wrote.
Alyssa is 85% to blame. But at the same time, I was just sitting in the theater and I was like, I miss seeing rowdy, raunchy, low to mid budget comedies in theaters. You mentioned Girls Trip, Aisha. Girls Trip was a phenomenon, but that was 2017. And obviously there was a whole pandemic between then and now that has affected the way movies are distributed. I made the mistake of seeing this movie at 2:00 in the afternoon on the Thursday when it opened. So there were 2 other people in the theater. And I really found myself I needed to see this in a a crowd.
Yeah.
It feels like it's engineered to be enjoyed in a crowd. You know, we alluded to this blood bank scene with Janelle James. First of all, you put Janelle James in anything and I'm immediately laughing.
Yeah.
And that scene goes wildly over the top. Not the substance level over the top, but it goes pretty far over the top. But I wanted to be cringing in a room full of yelling people. I think my enjoyment of this film may have been dulled slightly by the absence of a really active crowd.
I mean, I saw it in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday, and I'll say the jokes that I didn't laugh at, a lot of people did.
Yes. Yeah. I also saw it at like 2:00 on a Thursday, but maybe just because I'm in Oakland, but like my theater was pretty packed. They were enjoying it. My crowd was enjoying, and it was probably, I'd say the majority of the people were Black and or over the age of 30. So like, do with that what you will. But I think there was a lot of nostalgia. I could sense like people were like, they were into it, right? Like, and it's California. So it's like, there's just a lot of little things about California and LA specifically that I think a lot of people in my crowd could relate to, perhaps in a way that Steven, well, there were only 3 people in there, but you know.
It was hard to even get a demographic breakdown.
Yeah.
But I 150% agree. I think that Drew and Alyssa needed to break up. I thought the end of the film, to me, Drew should have kicked Alyssa to the curb. And I think that she really should have focused on like her
corporate
career and also on her love life with this good looking. That's what I will say. The film's not lacking in good looking people. Listen, there might have only been a few people in the theater, but there were twice as many hotties on screen. We're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we're getting into Issa Rae's knack for casting and so much more. We'll be right back.
This message comes from Charles Schwab. When it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices, like full-service wealth management and advice when you need it. You can also invest on your own and trade on Thinkorswim. Visit schwab.com to learn more. This message comes from NPR sponsor REI Co-op. You can't make more time, but when you opt outside, you can make the most of it. So make time for those early mornings, last-minute trips, and timeless views for small victories, big fails, and everything in between. And when you're ready, REI has the gear, clothing, classes, and advice to help you make the most of your time out there. Visit your local REI Co-op or rei.com/opt-outside. This message comes from CarMax. CarMax knows that finding the right car is all about exploring your options, like the option to shop your way on your schedule. At CarMax, you can browse, compare, and pre-qualify online, then finish up at the store, or simply start on the lot. The choice is yours, because at CarMax, you're in the driver's seat. Start the search for your next car today at CarMax, the way car buying should be. This message comes from Thuma. Create your oasis with Thuma, a modern design company that specializes in furniture and home goods. By stripping away everything but the essential, Thuma makes elevated beds with premium materials and intentional details. With clean lines, subtle curves, and minimalist style, the Thuma bed collection is available in 4 signature finishes to match any design aesthetic. To get $100 towards your first bed purchase, go to thuma.co/NPR.
I mean, Issa Rae produced this, so like, of course, there's gonna be 2 to 3 different very good-looking men.
Wait, Corey and Tony, I want to ask you a question. You had mentioned in a chat that we had last week that you were like, I think I had seen the film and you had yet to see it, and you had like some curiosity about like how it was gonna speak to like the current moment of being like Black in your 20s and in a city trying to like be on the come up. Did you feel like it was like relatable in any aspect, or that it was like speaking in an honest way in any aspect?
You know, there's a moment at the beginning of the film where they come out, or they're coming back to their apartment, and they see one of their neighbors, and he's outside with all his stuff on the sidewalk.
Oh, yeah.
And I had this moment where I was like, you know, this is a comedy. Everything is hiked up to this, you know, nth degree. You know, we've already seen somebody get blasted through a wall.
Right.
But I think it was a really good representation of like what that deepest fear is when you are like young and hungry and on the come up and you are working and you just trying to make it work. You don't know what happened to this guy. You just know he ain't make his rent.
Right.
There are moments in the film, despite all of the, antics, that I feel like really take real fears and they hike them up to the nth degree and say, okay, this is what it's going to look like in this, hilarious context or what have you. But it hits. And it hikes the stakes up for the characters, too. I remember that was a moment where I was like, okay. So, yeah, I do think I found it relatable.
I wanted to ask you guys about the sense of place in this film. The film is shot in the South LA neighborhood known as the Jungles. That neighborhood is really a big part of this movie. It's almost like a character in the movie.
Yes.
Aisha and Corey Antonio, you guys are both in California. Did you feel that sense of place? Did it feel authentic to you?
I mean, I can't claim
California is a big place.
Yes, and also I've only lived here for like 4.5 years, so I'm not here to like. I don't want anyone who's actually like from LA to be like, you don't know anything about this place. I did get a sense from, especially again, this goes back to the movie Friday. Like you have all these different types of personalities, and everyone knows everyone, or is like 2 or 3 degrees away from someone. I thought Aziza Scott, who plays Big Booty Bernice, was like, she was a character, and she was in sometimes kind of a caricature, but I still enjoyed that because there are people who are just, that's who they are. The Joshua David Neal, who plays Keyshawn, Alyssa's deadbeat boyfriend.
The worst boyfriend.
Everyone just felt real. And the sense of the place where they actually live, the apartment where they live, and how they have the older woman who's kind of the mother figure in the place, and then you have like,
shout out to Vanessa Bell Calloway.
Again, it felt like the little that I've experienced of LA and what I've experienced of living in the Bay, it felt true in a way. And I would expect nothing less from Issa Rae because, again, she's producing this and LA is her home, and she most of the things she does are like love letters to LA in a way. And I don't think this is any different.
Oh, I was never Miss California myself either. But I will say, knowing Issa Rae's work and the way that she can really sink her teeth, or her productions sink their teeth into the culture of a specific place and really live in that and bring it out. It reminds me of Jocelyn Biao.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
Another friend of IBAM.
Yes.
It reminds me of the way she sets her stories in these really specific places, and part of the enjoyment or part of the pleasure factor of enjoying the art is you get to see how the culture of this specific place really does affect the lives and the narratives of these characters. And I found that to be something that was really true with this piece.
I have one last thing that I want to say, which is Keke Palmer needs to be the lead of every movie. Whatever movies are coming out, she could have been leading Nosferatu. She could have played, I'm sorry, and she needs to be the lead in every movie. The same way, talented young man, but the same way Timothée Chalamet, I feel like every time I turn around, it's a new version of Timothy.
You just want to replace Timothée Chalamet with Keke Palmer.
I think actually he would love that. I actually think he would love that. She has that, like, not to quote, Eli Wallach from The Holiday, but she has real gumption. And it's a joy to see her on screen. And I just wish I could see more of her. That's how I feel, basically. That's my main review of
I agree.
One of Them Days.
The way I grew up with my aunties playing Whoopi Goldberg movies, and it was hit after medium low hit, after high hit, after all right hit, after real good deep cut hit. That's how Keke's catalog is going to be if we can own digital media, in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
More Keke Palmer.
Keke Palmer, if you're listening, please, whatever you do more of it. That was NPR's Aisha Harris, Stephen Thompson, and Corey Antonio Rose. I'm Brittany Luce, and this has been the Pop Culture Happy Hour. It's been a minute collab that I know y'all have been waiting for. You can hear more from Pop Culture Happy Hour every weekday, wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Warby Parker. What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost, like free adjustments for life. Find your pair at warbyparker.com or visit one of their hundreds of stores around the country.
This message comes from Intuit. Need a software solution to simplify the complexities of your growing business? Transform how you manage with Intuit Enterprise Suite's powerful automation and core suite of tools for financial management, payment processing, payroll, HR, bill pay, marketing, and third-party integrations. It's how a growing business keeps growing. Visit intuit.com/enterprise to learn more. Money Movement Services by Intuit Payments, Inc., licensed by NYDFS.
This message comes from Bombas. Their socks are super plush, designed to support your arches and support people in need. One purchase equals one donated to those experiencing homelessness. Go to bombas.com/NPR and use code NPR for 20% off your first order.